Same here. And all right, we're ready to go.
Oh yeah.
Hello, everyone. This is wmpyr, and my co-host, or you're the host in a way because it's going to be on your channel too, Sensei
Yeah.
Pedro.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How's it going?
So recently we met up. We had another epic um, training session, right?
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Um, it's been a while since we got together, and
Yes.
yeah, it was a long time coming.
Before the pandemic, right? That was the last time we trained together,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
you're right.
Yeah. And this was our fourth time meeting
I
because
believe
the first time was at your combat hapkido place where you go to with Sensei Clay, right?
that's right.
Yeah, that was the first time. And then you came over to my place twice after that, and then this is the third time. So if we count the hapkido place, then it's four.
Oh yeah, four in total.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, that's always a pleasure, bro.
Definitely, same here, man. Anytime I get to train FMA and get to exchange ideas and develop and work on new things, learn new things, man, it's always a blast.
Same here for sure. Now, I think one of the things that like I've uploaded a lot of our videos that we took together, right? That I recorded, so that stuff has been up on my YouTube channel. Just recent, I uploaded yesterday, David, where I've been uploading these past few days. Anyway, in it, what the people probably won't see is that you are awesome with the trapping drills. And
Oh, so,
in behind the scenes here, we don't have the behind the scenes footage, but you're the guy that's helping me. You're showing me the stuff. You're walking me through it because the truth is, I'm not that good at it, right? I'm not that good at the trapping. So that's more like your specialty. And not saying that you can't do the other stuff because you could do the other stuff really well too, but definitely you shine in the trapping area compared to me. And for me personally, the reason was because back in the day when I was learning this stuff, I learned the trapping stuff. I could not get it to work in full contact to save my life. I couldn't do it. So, in that sense, you and I kind of have a completely different idea about trapping. So, we should be like arguing and fighting about it, but we don't.
yeah, well, my for me, I think since every FMA style I've done, and I've done cross train a little bit of Wing Chun too. Excuse me, sorry. That's always part of the curriculum,
Yes.
and it's just fun to do. But I think you touched on something interesting there, where you said that for you, when you try to apply it, maybe like in a sparring or live scenario, it wasn't coming through.
Yes.
And I think in my experience, what I've done through sparring is what'll really come through is just like the one step, maybe two step
Mm.
trapping and clearing. And you see this a lot too. Like a perfect example of this is the boxer Vasily Lomachenko. He'll start throwing punches, get a guy to cover up, and then he cuts the angle with his lead hand. He'll drop their hand, and he comes over with a hook.
Right.
And that's just the basic clear.
Yes.
But from that clear, you can trap it, and it's more of just a crude sort of wraparound trap,
Right.
but it's still a trap. And I think that's probably what'll come out
Okay.
whenever you use it in a live scenario. But the other trapping, the 2 step, 3 step trapping, I look at it like it's really for conditioning and building up reflexes. Because obviously a real fight isn't here, 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 and then you hit.
Right.
That's not a real fight, obviously, but I think it does build hand dexterity and other reflexes, and so I think there is some merit to training it. It's
Yes.
just I look at it as just like a training tool.
Yes.
Um, but I know full well, and I tell people too full well that that's not the fight. A real street fight isn't a Yip Man movie. Uh,
Well, and I think at the end of the day, even though like in my experience, I wasn't able to do it in full contact. It sounds like in your experience, you modify it or you exactly what you just explained right now, and so for you it was fine, and for me it wasn't fine. But at the end of the day, I think the reason why we're not arguing and fighting about this is because we both believe that there is merit to trapping. Like we, at the end of the day, even though like I can't do it in full contact and I had a lot of trouble with it, and I was like, okay, I need to evolve this thing to work for me. At the end of the day, I believe that it can be functional and effective and practical, and so do you. So that's where we agree upon 100%. We
Absolutely.
both love the art,
Oh yeah,
right?
totally,
Yeah.
totally.
So in my case, what we did last time together was the force to force block, right? And the way that I view that is that occurs before trapping, but eventually you want to get to trapping. That's
Right.
kind of the way that I view it, because if the force to force block to me is a very high success rate,
Hmm.
but you can't stay there because the opponent will figure you out. That's the way that I view it. So it's kind of like imagine a boxer who just all he does is blocks. Yeah, he has this high success rate of blocking, but he's not going to win any match that way. And that's what the force to force block, it literally says it's a block in the name. It's a force to force block. And we know blocking, it's not the best thing to do,
Right.
but it's like a backup. So how do you view from what we did last time? What did you get out of it? And
Dude, I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome. I've done something similar in one of the FMA styles that I trained before.
mm-hmm.
Empty hand knife defense. Same structure.
Yeah.
The only little thing was that it would tell us your the hand you used to block from the elbow to the shoulder should land just like a split millisecond before the other hand that you used to block the forearm.
Okay.
Just because that way you can kind of impede movement, right? Like as opposed to blocking on forearm where they still have their range of motion with the shoulder.
Right.
You're kind of blocking the shoulder in this way, but it's the same thing. It's force to force, right? Working at different angles.
Interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
but I look at it too like the force to force blocking. It's almost like the startle flinch response. It's really like the same thing because both hands are coming out. You're
Right.
meeting force with force,
Right.
and then from there, you're right. Once you have that contact, you have that wraparound. You have that sort of crude trapping. You know what I mean? And so when you're there and you start landing heavy shots, working your headbutts, your elbows, or whatever you're gonna do. But I like it. I like it. I think it's a very naturalistic response.
Yes.
It's kind of working off with a startle flinch, and it definitely should be trained.
Is it very interesting you said startled flinch because I noticed back in 2006, 2007, or around that time, when I opened my first dojo, I was testing this out on my students that were willing.
Mm,
And I would give them a training knife and I say, attack me. And when they attacked me and when I wasn't ready, because sometimes that happened, I handed him the knife and I said, go ahead, attack me. And he immediately attacked me. I was like, whoa, wait. I thought we were going to set and then, but he immediately attacked me. And that happened a couple of times where I was just caught off guard. This is what came out. And like you said, startled flinch, flinch. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Startled flinch. Yeah.
Well, it is, and when you think about it, it's kind of like when you're a kid and you're in school, and you're around other boys, and then they pretend like they're gonna punch you or something, and then we all flinch. and then, oh man, why are you flinching? Blah blah blah, this and that. But you want to flinch. You know, I think
Yes.
that's the reason why we're here, because our ancestors flinched and and ran away and what have you. But it's funny how that's just a built-in response in all humans.
Mm.
And I think you know trying coming up with the force to force block and using it and kind of building off of that, I think it's a good thing.
Man, that I did not expect we were going to go into Tony Blauer territory. You know, with the spear and all that. Wow, that's yeah. You brought in an interesting perspective. For me, like I said, in 2000, let's say seven, around that time, normally when I was training Muay Thai kickboxing, I was training what I wanted to do. I was working on my attacks. But now for the first time, I have students, so I was holding the mitts for them, the pads, right? And they would attack me. And as I was working the pads, I realized, wait a minute, this is the force to force block. So they throw a Thai kick, and I would do that. And that's when it made sense to me. Like that was the first time, because until then I was the one hitting, and I never,
Dude, you know what, man? Now that you mention it, yeah, that is true. Like with the kicks or even like the punches reinforcing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Dude, I never thought about it like that.
And that's when I was like, "Whoa, these Filipinos are geniuses." That's when I made the connection there. Yeah,
That
for
is
that.
true.
Yeah, but like I said though, I feel like it's the force to force block is great and everything, but we do want to get to trapping because you know you can't just block, and at the end of the
Right.
day, defang the snake is better because it's a counter strike.
Absolutely.
It's just that if your opponent is formidable or you're really caught off guard or you're not in a good position,
Mm.
it's hard to see and time their attack and counter their attack. It's hard, and then it just turns into a force to force block, which is you can defang the snake with it, but it's not as good as right.
Right, right. Totally, totally. Yeah. That does, yeah. A good proper defanging the snake, like you said, requires good timing and a good amount of force behind it and to do the damage. But you know, as I think about, okay, you do force to force block. I think it's probably just a question of milliseconds
Hmm.
to really get into a trap, to really like shoot in and trap that limb.
Yes.
Because realistically, with the opponent attacking you, whether it's empty hand or with a weapon, they're coming in just pure adrenaline aggression.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they're not going to leave that limb out there for too long. So I think, dude, that would be interesting to work out.
Hmm.
Like drilling some force to force blocking into an immediate wrap up, immediate trap.
Well, I've tried that with students. I've tried it with you too, believe it or not.
Oh,
In the past, like when we worked out together, and what I found was that it didn't work.
oh, really?
And with you, the same, and with my student, I wanted desperately to skip the grab the hand part. I wanted to and go immediately into a wrap. I wanted to totally. I was like, why grab the hand if you could just wrap it? So we go right away into like more MMA type stuff, Greco-Roman stuff, grappling stuff. So I wanted to totally skip the hand grab because grabbing the hand, you see like in Aikido, Steven Seagal, like grabbing the hands, it's very powerful if you can get it. But then,
Right.
Getting it to get the hand when this is happening. So I was like, I want to totally skip that. I tried it, with different people, including you, and I got stabbed. That it's just the truth. I have to admit it. And so then I was like, you need to. That's why in trapping we do this. You have to do that. Because if not, and you just immediately try to Greco-Roman it, you get stabbed with a knife. Okay, empty hand, it don't matter. Because a
Right.
body shot from there doesn't hurt that bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, unless it's like Tyson, you know, fully swinging at
Oh,
you or something. But yeah, but once you're already like grabbing the guy, a body shot from there wouldn't be too bad. But a knife could be fatal.
oh, absolutely. And I wonder this though.
Yes.
With a knife and then trying to wrap right, you block it and you
Mm.
try to wrap. Is there like a midway point, like where you can apply some striking, maybe like as a distraction,
Yes.
that could possibly get them for that split second to where you can apply the wrap, apply the trap?
For what I found for me, you know, because I to me this is my thesis paper that I've been working on since college, right?
Yeah.
Is how can I make this the trapping stuff work in full contact? So that's been my you know, obsession in a way, and because you know I really respect the Filipino martial arts and all that, and you know, you hear people like in Sifu Paul Vunak say that the trapping range is that's where the Jeet Kune Do guys, you know, that's where they shine and stuff like that, right? So,
Right.
but then if all they did was like Muay Thai, you know, clinch work, then I was just like, that's then why not just study Thai boxing and forget about, right?
Yeah, and realistically, that's one of the things to remember too. That really the trapping range, you're only there for literally like a split second. I mean, it's easy to get out of. It's easy to close the distance from it, or take it into grappling, or move out and go back into long range striking. Um, but yet, sometimes people devote the entirety or most of the entirety of the system to it. But I think for me, it would just be kind of like how you said, using that Muay Thai boxing sort of frame and going back to that Lomachenko example, or even
Yes.
to another guy that I like looking at is Roberto Duran,
Mm-hmm.
the Hands of Stone. He used a lot of grappling and underhooks and wrapping up when he would infight. And so I look at him as an example of what realistic trapping would look like in a
Okay.
full contact scenario. And I think that's probably the way to apply it. Really, doing it like Lomachenko and Roberto Duran.
George Foreman also did that. He would pop your guard down and then sneak in a punch.
I remember too. If you look at him in his earlier fights in the '70s and '80s, where he would almost like, you know, the guy had his guard up here, and he would like kind of stretch out his hands, block the hands too, and then from
Wow.
there do the paw it down and come over the top.
And that's interesting because later in his career he adopted an X block.
Mm, that's right.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, that's all around like trapping stuff. But for my personal findings, I found that the missing ingredient to trapping, right, and you know, like what you're talking about, I 100% agree with, and I've seen other like martial arts instructors like Burton Richardson say stuff like that. You know that it is preemptive and it's used as an entry, and you know that's kind of what you're talking about right there. And as far as the compound trapping, you know, it's we don't really see that kind of stuff. For me to see compound trapping and the arms really tied up and go into locks and wrenches, lock flow and stuff that we do in FMA and all that, the missing ingredient is what I call clashing. And
Mm,
so everything that I've seen in the drills, where even just now I saw a video of someone doing a panantukan stuff where they're using elbows and this, and then they grab the arm and they elbow this. They're grabbing the arm off of a punch, of course, because the guy's throwing a
mm,
punch. And I'm like, that's the problem right there. You
yeah.
don't. And clashing is to me comes from it's something I just made up, but the word clashing I made it up. It comes from in ancient battlefields. If you had a sword, I had a sword, and we're on the battlefield and we're fighting for our village, right?
Mm,
I'm gonna fight a lot safer, right? Because if I die, then that's one less person defending the village, and then who's gonna, you know, take care of my family, right?
mm,
So I got to fight to live, and the hospital is very far away, and the technology for the hospital is bad already. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not going to risk it. What do I do? Well, I do what anyone does. If you've sparred with a weapon and you know the other guy could really hurt you with that weapon, you clash. You jam their weapon with yours, not to take them out. You're just jamming their weapon, and then from there, you neutralize the weapon. You grab the arm. So once you do that, whether the guy has a knife or a stick, or he has KO power in his hand, you could do the same idea. So then in JKD, they say that the arms crossed is just a reference. They're like, in real fight, that doesn't happen. This is just a reference point. And that's where I disagree. No, that is you clashing. That is the symbol for clash. You ramming your arm there and grab their wrist, and you charge at them, press them up like this. Now you can trap.
Yeah,
Just an idea.
you know what? I I like it because that works off of too, like the examples I was mentioning with Lomachenko, right? Because for you, you're almost like you can maybe come in with like a low kick to the knee, come in almost with like a forearm shearing strike, right?
Yeah.
Their guard is up.
Yes.
Boom! Now they're here, and now you can start working over the top or clearing. Boom, boom, coming in, right?
Right.
um, it's interesting too when you mentioned the examples of the weapons clashing. You see that in classical fencing arts. You see it in kenjutsu.
Every weapon, yeah.
Everywhere. You especially see it in the European martial arts, HEMA. I believe they call it the bind.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
That's what most of longsword is. It's just, we think it's just, them clashing swords, boom, 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 boom,
Right.
boom, like Highlander style or what have you. But
Right.
reality, swords were very delicate and cost a lot to repair. So they would clash up, bind, and then from there kind of work, a trap or a clear, and then
Yes.
they'd get the kill shot.
Yes.
Or the
Yes.
shot. So it's funny you mentioned because that's what they were doing.
Well,
And
it made sense to me, and then also I was in a position where I did spar weapon to weapon,
mhm,
and of course these were foam sticks, but in that situation I was like, man, I don't want to take a hit here. This other guy has some skill, and even though I have some skill too, I was like, I can't just go to town, because if just because they're foam, I could have, I'm hitting him 5 times, he's hitting me 5 times, but I was like, how realistic is that? So
right.
I try not to do that, and then I was like, then I can't take a hit here, and if he doesn't care and he's swinging like crazy, then I gotta jam that thing. And yeah, that's from my real life experience. Going, oh man, if that was a real sword, how scary!
Oh, dude, totally. And I think so. Then one of the things to look into now is methods of crashing,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And so there's a lot of times you see the technique where you just kind of cover and close the distance,
right,
right? Especially because you got somebody just throwing them wild haymakers.
right.
That's one method of clashing. You have some people that cover and then come in, kind of like a
Yes,
battering ram. And two, kind of one of the more like JKD-ish ways that I see is, again, maybe attacking the knee with a lead, kick to the knee. And then sometimes that gets people to drop their hands, and then you already got your opening there. Or, you close the distance that way, their hands are up. Then, like I said, you have that sort of forearm contact, and then that clear there. And then you got your cross or whatever tool you want to use.
yes.
But I think you have a good little technique, the grinder.
Uh, yeah. Okay. So before that, we both do double sinawali, which is you know the double arm weaving, right, with the double sticks. So in that, the most prolific one is the Heaven Six, right?
Yeah.
So when you actually, I don't know how they taught it to you for real life usage, but for me it was like the guy throws a punch and then you go 1, 2 on the arm, 3 is on the neck, and then four,
Yeah,
five, six is finish them off kind of thing.
yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much, right? So then 1 and 2 is on the arm. And I was like, in real life, against the boxer, I go 1, 2, it's, I can't even get that 2, right? Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, it's that fast. So for me to get this 2, it's on a really good day. So I was like, 1 and 2 got to be like almost like bam, like simultaneous, right? So then he, arms are crossed. I'm jamming it, and one of these hands is grabbing the arm,
Mm,
and then from there now I can go into wrench, I could go into the grinder, like you said, grinding, which is just all that is from there. I want to finish with the heaven six, so I continue the heaven six, and I just do the heaven six, but it's extreme close range now because I clashed.
mm-hmm.
You have to. Yeah, you can't, there's no space. So
And and again that goes back to doing the heaven instead of going 1, 2, 3, right?
right.
Kind of making it one
I'm
motion.
I'm jamming, right. It's the one. It's still 1, 2, but I'm jamming it into their arm
But that's still
and
very similar
yeah,
to force blocking.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It
It's
is
all the same. It's funny
exactly
how it all comes around,
right. It's has to make sense in that way. It works one way and then it completely different, and no, it's it has to
No,
connect.
and that's one of the cool things about FMA too, where it's like multiple weapons, but still like similar ways of using it,
Hmm.
or similar concepts or tactics. And that's another example of it. Like I said, working that way, working the force to force block, you're building off of that sort of flinch instinct.
And since you're so much better than I am in the trapping stuff, I'm thinking once you apply the clashing, it would be interesting to see all the stuff that you can pull off. Now,
Man, it would be cool, man. It would be cool to experiment with that, man. We got to do that next time, man.
yeah, yeah, and I also like to think of it from the what we did. We actually did this here. I wish we had recorded, but from a sumo perspective too. So I could
Yes.
give you some of the tsuppari, which is their palm strikes, and then from there, I mean, you could be working on your trapping on me if you'd like. I think that would be awesome.
Oh, dude, totally, man. Totally, man. I really appreciate that.
But you gotta clash first, or else to try to catch something from like that, it's not. You gotta clash it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's gonna be interesting because from the sumo perspective, like there's just the head-on clash,
Right.
right?
Right.
A lot of people do,
Right.
and then we're talking about how the last tournament I went to, there was this lady who was doing this really cool, like female triangle 45-degree footstep to avoid.
Yes.
She was a smaller girl. She was avoiding the bigger girls, just boom, slipping, and then coming in.
Right.
And so I wonder, like, working that too, that forward, and then coming in, and then again,
Yes.
it becomes coming in this way. We're trapping, see if we trap there, and then work from there.
Yes. 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 And I'm one of my students was a wrestler, and I was telling him about some of these clashing ideas, and you said the main difference between, like, someone that does this kind of clashing, right, is they're not attacking the arm, they're attacking directly to the head and body, so they're clashing in just like you said, like the sumo guys, but they're not necessarily targeting the arms. For us, for trapping, to me is the same idea, but we're targeting the arm. We got to jam because they have the weapon. That that's
Right.
our mentality. But I was telling him in wrestling, I don't feel comfortable getting into the clinch unless I had something like the FMA Heaven Six type. I want something like this to protect me because wrestlers go chest to chest,
Mm-hmm.
and if you do that with someone who's had thousands and thousands of reps pummeling, I'm just not built the same way.
Huh.
Or even against a sumo wrestler, or especially against someone like a sumo wrestler, my body's not the same. I go up against someone that has that much girth and toughness and weight, and they're used to colliding. My body feels like it's gonna break just from horsing around.
That's interesting. So you like to kind of have like a frame,
I
right?
need this, yeah, against, and to me this is just heaven six starting position modified,
And so from there you clash in, and then you start trying to work like
and then I
underhook.
start pummeling, yeah, because I can't handle it.
That's interesting. I want to try that next time I do sumo.
I don't know if you're gonna get kicked out, bro.
Yeah, no, and that's like one of the tricky because there's something similar. Hakuho, if you see some of his matches, he would from the tachi. There were times where he would come up and he'd come up almost with like a forearm shot. It looked almost like an elbow,
Yeah.
but it was a forearm shot. He'd come up, boom, like this, and he'd
Yes.
catch the guy right here, and then he'd start working the belt or the underhooks or the supari. Um, and that kind of reminded me of that. This is sort of a frame too.
So let's say the tachiai is the beginning, right?
The
So from
beginning.
the starting position, and then the tsupari is the palm strike, like we said. But let me ask you this: does Hakuho have a reputation for cheating?
Yeah, yeah.
Is-
You see sometimes where he'll come up like this with an immediate slap to the head, but
yes.
his thumb is like awfully close to the eye.
Oh man,
So
that's like karate technique right there. Yeah, where you're
yeah,
slipping that in. Wow, that's pretty dirty.
yeah. So he did he did things like that, and but then he also there was one time I seen him. He started way on close to the tawara, the thing on the edge of the ring,
Yeah, the edge. Yeah.
and to avoid the tachi, the clash. And he just stood there and he told the guy, "Come on, let's go." And then the other guy got close. As soon as he got close, he just started swinging the slaps to the head like hooks and straight. And so that guy was, man, he was all over the place, man. He's doing all sorts of crazy stuff, but he did have that reputation of being a little bit of a trickster, a dirty trickster.
Wow. Well, I know he was a champion for a long time, so he must have had the bullseye mark on him. So, that'll do that to you, right?
Oh, definitely, definitely.
And him being a foreigner in Japan, I'm sure it was extra hard, you know.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I think he was almost viewed as the good guy just because there was another guy from Mongolia, Asashoryu, and that guy got all the bad rep. So
Mm,
people, I don't think even saw Hakuho as this cheater or whatever until way later. They were like, here's the good guy, and Asashoryu was like the Mike Tyson of sumo.
yeah,
So
and
he got all the bad press.
it's interesting because it seems that is the trend in all combat sports. They love you when you're rising,
Oh,
right?
okay,
And then as
yeah.
soon as you get to the top, now everybody wants to see you fall.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how that it's just the way it is everywhere, you know.
Right. Yeah, they just yeah. And as the person that's up there, that must not be a good feeling at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking, I bet.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking now, man. Like, I really want to practice and try out the clashing using
Oh,
those frames.
yeah.
And I think that would be interesting to show people. Like, put on some gloves, a mouth guard, and then just kind of play around with it. You know what I mean? Like from the punching range, and then another one from like just straight grappling.
Right. Well, before, I was, years ago, I was doing like I said, the clashing, but I would go from the clashing straight to the rapping,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I didn't clash and grab.
Mm-hmm.
That was missing, the neutralizing the arm. I thought I could, like I said, I thought I could totally skip that step, but the grabbing the arm part, the wrist or the arm, that was the missing step there, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be something that we got to experiment with and play around with and see what comes out. Because I think I've seen a couple of people. I think there's a fellow on YouTube, the martial arts journey guy that he was an Aikido guy that
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
years ago. He went up against the MMA guy, and he was trying to just immediately go for like a wrist and do like a kotegaeshi or
Right.
sankyo, different types of locks, and it wasn't working out.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, to try to do that off of a punch,
Yeah,
yeah, or even just try to grab the wrist, unless the guy just like he's doing something one of these, right? It's I think it's pretty difficult. You have to be in total control of the situation, like you're talking to the guy, and you're able to time it and just grab his hand or something, right?
yeah, and I'm thinking back to my kung fu training, the bajish and the hakyoku ken, because
Yes,
hakyoku ken is real famous for that clash too. It's just they don't like to stay out here and trap. It's just
that's right.
coming in with the elbows, and sometimes they do this cover, this
Yes.
cover. And I remember my teacher would just tell me like, as soon as you're in range, and what he would do sometimes, I'd have my guard up, and he would like kind of do like the George Foreman thing, kind of like slap down, and then he'd just come over the top with like a kauda, a body check.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just the shoulder and the back that was making contact; it was also the head. They're real like big into you hit them with your whole body.
Yes, yes, for sure.
But with clashing, dude, it's there's no half measures. You got to be all the way in determined.
Yes,
And
right.
so I think that's one of those mental things too that you got to get over. It's like you got to clash, you got to make contact.
And I'm thinking that's why the force to force block is important, because it allows you to work the timing.
Yeah,
Because imagine it's like, okay, you got to start with clashing.
yeah.
You with force to force block, you kind of maybe once or twice, and you get to kind of see, and now you go, okay, I get his timing now. Now I can clash. But imagine starting from clashing. Oh man, that
Yeah, that's one of the rough parts about sumo. That
oh
you're so close, and
right.
dude, there are some guys, even in the amateur scene here in the U.S., that they're specialists in the clash right off the hot shot. It's like, oh my goodness.
I could see that, especially in the U.S. because of football.
Mm-hmm.
So these dudes, they're just modifying it for sumo, and they got the muscles to be very explosive.
Totally, man. And they're coming straight here to the
Oh,
chest
oh man.
by the solar plexus, and sometimes the head. There's been a couple of bouts that I've been in where I've caught the top of the head on my chin.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Do they this? No, they don't.
Oh, they'll just come in straight in like this.
I see. I see.
So
Because
ideally,
football's this, right?
yeah,
Right.
this
Yeah.
way or. But with sumo, you're kind of in here like elbows in, almost like just like a regular Greco-Roman or amateur wrestling stance like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
The chin is tucked, and you want to make contact with like the forehead, the top of the part here, to the chest. But then sometimes you get up a little bit higher and you catch the chin.
Yeah. Now the hands here, what are they going for? Are they going for the armpits? Armpit control? Yeah.
Yeah, because the idea is to get them off their base.
Yes.
Pushing them back.
I can see that. Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, very very interesting stuff. Yeah, because like for me, like when you think of BJJ, I think their ultimate thing is submission.
Yeah,
That's their ultimate expression. That's what they're going for. And for FMA, I feel like it's the disarm.
I think so too.
And without trapping, I don't see how you could just disarm the guy. So the trapping makes that possible. We got to make the trapping work. How do you make for me it was clashing. Well, how do you make the clashing work? Well, it was the force to force block. So I went in steps like that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've seen people talk about like traditionally how we're taught, right? Like stick off of an angle one, you do your inside block, you trap the hand, maybe you turn it up this way so it's like this, stick pointing down. Then with your forearm, you can disarm this way and then work, something.
Right.
But realistically, man, like how we were doing with the sticks, when you're coming hard, boom, boom, and following through, how well is that block going to work that way? And then to get the trap, you know what I mean? Like you have to use really like a force on force block. And really, after you block and that comes through, maybe you come in on the, as he's coming through, maybe you come in on the backside.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe with a strike or come in, clash, then you trap, then you can start working
Yeah.
the disarm. And that is something that I've kind of realized too, training and trying to use some of the more like classical blocks that are taught. That some of them are like, man, I don't know, if it was a proper machete on machete fight,
Oh.
I wouldn't be using some of these moves, but
Without the distance, the safety of distance, and the ability to time it so you could evade at the same time and all that, it would be very difficult to do some of those moves. And of course, when they're teaching it to you, they're teaching it nice, so they remove all those things. And then you get the wrong impression. Oh, I could do this in medium range or in close range, and it's like I don't think so.
Yeah. And I feel like, just my opinion, just from sparring and whatnot.
Yes.
If you're have fight in a place that has proper distance, right, and maybe not like barriers, stuff you can trip over. Realistically, you're gonna do like a defanging the snake type mode, just meaning force to force, like a contrada. You're gonna meet their angle one, your angle one,
right?
As you're creating space and trying to get the hand, or even if it's just stick on stick. Instead of like staying there and closing the distance, maybe doing a roof block or an inside
right
tick. I mean, that's just what tends to come out.
Yes.
In my experience, what I've seen people doing.
Yes.
But then the question is, if you don't have, right, if you're fighting in a very close proximity, you don't have the space to move around.
Right.
I guess a modified version of the force-to-force block. You know what I mean? Like still using that structure, how we were doing, like the roof block structure.
Yeah.
But instead of just here and then trying to check the hand, maybe it's how we were doing it, right? Like reinforcing the stick or the blade here.
Well, the one thing I regret in that video that we shot a bunch of stuff there that we didn't show, but you and I talked about it briefly, was, do you remember when I asked you to do the force to force block and you did, and then I said, if you don't move out of the way, I could still hit you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So when the guy's doing a full swing motion like that, right? Like you're saying, with power and all that, then you still need the distance.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also did the faster motion, which would be more like in a closer space, right? Where the guy's like more like sewing machine kind of thing. We didn't really do that just because I try to go faster, and you went faster with me too, but we didn't do it in confined space. We were, but it's not like telephone booth and I would have liked to have shot that, which it would have been the same thing. You have to go fast. It's really on reflex.
But I think with that, my thinking is you don't have. So we know that you do a full swing, and I just stay there. I could block it, but that swing's going to come through and still hit me.
Yes.
So for me, if I can't move back, I got to move forward.
Right. For sure. For sure.
Possibly catching the hand or the limb.
Right.
And I think that's what it'll just kind of turn into. And we might have to do that with like foam sticks.
And that's why that's why with the knife we did foam, because I knew that our hands would have been messed up if we had done knife with regular stick.
Absolutely.
And so we did do that because.
and the good thing is, like I said, so phone booth range.
Yeah.
Big old swings coming, right? Like untrained guys gonna swing like this, and give you uh, the room to kind of close the distance,
Yeah.
right, off of this target.
Yeah.
Trained guy knows from here, just, turn, hip, pivot, boom, you can get power into it, right?
Right.
Less, but I feel like still closing this distance, you'll probably catch the hand here, or at least the bottom of the stick, and I think for the most part you'll be safe
Yeah.
at that range.
Yeah. I think, yeah, in phone booth distance, um, if the guy brings it back like this, it's gonna be where if he's trying to swing hard in phone booth distance, that's like trying to throw a haymaker when we're like right close to each other. And I don't. Do you think the instincts will do that, even for untrained? Because it kind of doesn't
Um,
make sense distance wise. So then I'm afraid of sewing machine there.
yeah,
Is it, and sewing machine is what the Dog Brothers talk about, where the guy comes at you with a knife repeatedly, like prison style shanking.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Not a big swing in phone booth.
yeah, yeah. Well, so with knife,
Yeah,
um,
especially knife. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, we're talking blunt object
Yeah.
is always going to be a big swing, even with confined space. I think.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Yeah, we could try that. Yeah, we could test it out.
but knife, what I've noticed is that most people they'll tend to go ice pick grip,
Hmm.
and either that or the prison shank sewing machine. Boom, 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 boom here, and that is troublesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is troublesome. But I think,
Think of how fast the sewing machine is, and that's why we were doing the speed force to force block, because it's a little bit different from the full swing force to force block, right? Where the opponent is coming at you full swing, and you got to block a certain way, but then if the guy's coming at you fast, like we also did, it felt different, right?
oh, definitely. And I think for me, dealing with that, I think I would want to block force to force, but then try to create pain immediately.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Try to short circuit them. And some of the stuff that I've seen out there that I like is kind of just for like a frame of reference, something like that you see like the Krav guys do, the Krav Maga guys, where they'll block and like simultaneously hit.
Right.
I think that could work pretty well.
Mm.
Short circuit them, and then you could work something else for them, maybe clash, wrap up a limb,
Yeah.
or keep hitting them. But you're gonna get uncomfortably close. Phone booth, knife. Ice pick is coming down here, and
Right.
who knows the length of the weapon?
Right.
If it's a big old kitchen knife, you're coming this way, and you're like coming in maybe like a double roof block here or something. Man, that sucker's gonna be right here.
Right.
But I mean, you might have to get sacrificed getting cut here, instead of getting stabbed in the neck or in the chest or what have you. I mean, possibly, because what do we always say in FMA, that you're gonna get cut,
Right. Right.
it's just the truth.
Yeah. It's yeah. People when you spar, you see like wow, it's
No, absolutely, everything comes out.
and that's why I think with the force to force block, that's one of the reasons why I say even though it's high percentage, we don't want to keep doing it because it's gonna get through.
Yeah,
Yeah, something will get through. So you know, either you run or you close the distance, like you're saying. And
yeah. I mean, those are really
yeah,
the tricky parts, like you were saying. The middle in between starting point and closing the distance and controlling that little no man's land, if you will.
right. That's medium range, dude.
Yeah.
that's, that's medium range. Yeah, that's where a boxer's punch hits the hardest. That's where the Muay Thai fighter's kick hits the hardest. That's the end of the baseball bat. The
absolutely.
thickest part of the baseball bat. That's medium range.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you gotta get comfortable being in the pocket, and practice it and just work up the technique and close the distance, man.
For
But that
FMA, what they traditionally teach for that, isn't it to this
the crosshand block tapping,
right?
and I was doing a little bit of that when we were working the 5 knife angles. Because I was doing a little bit of a mixture of like block, right, block a little gunting here, and then polish sooting, and
Yes, yes,
going into a control.
right.
And then there was a couple where sometimes using this structure here that you'll see like in Wing Chun or what have you, but this arm's here. Like, so I'm blocking with my lower arm, like a
Okay.
regular, like a Gedan Barai in karate, like a downward block.
Yes.
And this top hand is here to cover the high line and also is here to polish it, to pass.
Okay.
And then I think when you're doing like the angle 4, the backhand slash to the body is where I was just going into the crosshand tapping here.
Okay.
This way and tapping it.
Right.
And I think too from the 5 to stab.
Yes.
Well, no, I have more of like a downward block, but with a scoop. But I was taught that too in the Kali systems that I trained. They always said that this is wrong, right? If it's coming from like an angle 1,
right,
that this is correct.
Yes.
Right? So you're shifting your body, you're crosshand tapping. You crosshand block first, then you tap. And the reasoning behind that was because if it's an angle 1, let's say it's a stab or a slash here,
yes,
you meet it here, but then you're open down here to the body and you can't catch it. Right?
I remember you showing me that. You called it the blue worm, right?
The blue worm, exactly.
Yes.
So you come high, distract, boom.
Right.
You slash the belly. But then they say too, it's easier to track when you do a crosshand tap this way. Because the angle 1 is here, I met it, and then as they're coming down, I lower my level, and this frame's already here, and I can meet it and pass it, polish it.
So once again, that is for medium range where it's like, oh crap, I'm in the worst place. I mean, we don't want to be doing that, but in FMA, I mean, it kind of shows you how thorough the founders were. They covered all the ranges, but and that's an excellent drill. But then for me to change that drill for to make it combat ready, I was doing the Heaven 6 here and here like this, right? So if I'm going up against a kickboxer or a boxer in full contact and I end up in medium range, which I don't want to against someone like that. In boxing, you got a shield, right? So I thought FMA to me is the same thing. You end up with someone against a knife in medium range, and they're saying use this. To me, it's the same idea. So I was doing the Heaven 6 like this, and if an attack came, I would force to force block it using the forearms, basically.
Yeah.
So that was my interpretation or my modification of what you're talking about, where we're doing a cross forearm block in medium range.
Yeah, and you hit a key point there that is the medium range technique. Because at long range, well, you got your lead Sipa kick, you got your lead, how they do a lot in JKD, the lead low kick to the knee.
Mm-hmm.
And you got your head movement. You have your basic maybe passing it with the lead hand or just a parry with your rear hand, or kind of almost like a hubud motion too, where you parry and then check it here and move out.
Okay.
Ankle out. And then so I wouldn't try to cross hand tap at long range. It's not
No.
No. You have your other options, and but I have found that cross hand tapping in mid range,
yes,
it really has to be drilled, because if you're not used to it, it can be slow.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because just the same as people say, well, from an angle 1 that this is wrong. Well, if I cross hand tap here, right? I can meet the angle one, but if somebody knows what they're doing, they come here and then they turn it to like an angle two.
Right.
And so then now you're on the wrong side of the angle two. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is that too. There's always a
Y-
counter
To a
to every
counter. Yeah.
angle.
Oh, right. Everything has a weakness, but yeah, I just viewed it when in FMA they're saying use this to defend instead of defang the snake or the other defenses that we do like force to force block. They're saying use this. Then to me, I just put it together with when do I do that in boxing? Oh, when I gotta do that when I'm up against the ropes like that, then and I was like, that's the same range.
Mm.
So it made sense to me that way. So the full contact for me was a big um, help guide
Oh, absolutely,
to
absolutely. Because training, drilling, it's for reflex building and getting the technique down too. But this is a fair critique that they say that there's a lot of theory in that, and then the truth is in the sparring, in the full contact.
right.
You know,
It
and
was hard for me to visualize, once again, like they're showing me all these fantastic drills and I'm like, okay, what's the context? How do I put it together so that I can go use it? And that was the difficult thing. I needed a blueprint,
mm-hmm.
and so I basically all I did was just got full contact, you could call it MMA, whatever, and just put that as the blueprint, and then all of a sudden things made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of people, when they do that, things don't make sense, but for me, it made sense.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a good way to go about it. It's good to use boxing or kickboxing or MMA as a sort of foundation,
Like a skeleton,
a
like a
skeleton.
bare bones, because it doesn't have weapons, it doesn't have multiple attackers, it doesn't have any of that. So it's
Exactly.
but a nice skeleton. Now you do traditional, but you also do sport combat sports too. You've done
Right.
various. So what? How is your viewpoint with that? Like, do they clash or do you put them together or?
I think, for me, it's really 50-50. And what I mean by that is that obviously all the challenge matches you see between traditional martial arts and MMA or boxing, obviously the boxing and MMA usually comes out on top.
Right.
Especially the matches you see out of China with these traditional Tai Chi guys. And Zhu Xiaodong, I think was his name, the MMA guy over there that was challenging the old masters. But what are you seeing now? Like, okay, we saw Ronda Rousey, judoka, Olympian, murdering girls, right? Like just beating everybody up with judo's a combat martial art, but
Combat sport.
a
Yeah.
combat sport.
Yeah.
But still, a lot of people discredited judo before that.
Mm.
It relies too much on the gi and this and that. But no, I mean, she showed that, look, a lot of the throws are still there without the gi, and you cause huge damage. And she was, mowing through girls. And then we've seen, too, the highlight reels of people throwing in, like, these crazy spinning, jumping taekwondo type kicks and getting knocked out. We've seen capoeira. People get knocked out with some capoeira kicks.
Right. In full contact. Yeah.
In full contact
Yeah.
MMA. And so for me, again, I think you said it perfectly. The skeleton, your skeleton should be a combat sport, boxing, MMA, what have you. But then you got to have the traditional in there because that's where it came from.
Right.
And then there's still truth in it,
Yeah.
There's wisdom in it. There's something you can find that you're able to adapt into the modern, in my opinion. Another good analogy for it is I heard people talking about Aikido.
Yeah.
And they said, well, look, when you're eating your steak and potatoes and veggies, your steak and all that, your veggies, that's all like your combat sport.
Okay. Okay.
You got to be good at boxing, your MMA, boom, boom, boom. But what you season your steak with and your veggies, That's the Aikido. That's the traditional. So it has a flavor of it in there. There's something
Wow.
in there.
Okay.
And I always
Okay.
thought that was a good little analogy. It's kind of funny, but
Yeah.
it's true. And that's kind of my viewpoint now, where I would mainly train, traditional martial arts, if you will, full
Yes.
more. Whereas now it's more the opposite, where I'm more dedicated to like my BJJ, the MMA, and you know. But then again, I'll try to, like I said, I'm doing the Hapkido, but I mean, combat Hapkido and really FMA too is like a weird in between. It's not really like traditional,
Nice. Yeah.
but it's not like a full on combat sport. It's more like, well, I would say FMA is a little bit more leans towards combat sport
Okay.
because we do have the sparring,
Yes.
not, but there is something like we were mentioning before that's like, will that really work in full contact? Um, but yeah, this one there are some that are kind of like in between, but
Like sumo?
yeah, like sumo too as well. Very. I mean, you very full on head clash, straight up wrestling, but there's still a lot of like, well, you have to start from this like knuckles on the ground. Like nobody fights like that in real life. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like you can't kick or so it's interesting. But yet I feel having done sumo that I've gained a lot of skill from it,
Uh-huh.
and I felt I've improved as a martial artist all around. Because even if you
Awesome.
say, well, okay, well, maybe you didn't pick up any specific techniques, but what did you gain?
Yeah.
Well, competition, no matter what you do, you gain confidence, right? You see what works. You learn how to deal with stress, with nerves.
Yeah.
I think all of that can transfer to your self defense
Right. For sure.
life,
For
or
sure.
if
Yeah.
you're planning on competing or what have you. So and dude, even if you're doing like traditional like point sparring karate or whatever, you go to a tournament, you're gonna do that in front of people. You're
Yeah.
gonna be nervous. You're gonna be but it gives you that experience, and it's kind of lower risk of like injury or what have you.
Right.
So there's always something to be gained from training, traditional martial arts, if you will.
That is your awesome attitude, bro. That you are looking for something to gain, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what it is. And unfortunately, not everybody has that. They're just looking at the negative, and they're just hating on things, and whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, and look, I understand where some of the like the hate might come because you get these, and it happens in traditional martial arts, the Kyusho Jutsu type, pressure point. I'm gonna knock you out with my chi energy. There was a fella, I think he was from Scandinavia. I think an Aikido guy. I think it was called Efo or something like that. That was come attack me, and then he wouldn't even touch you, and he would just do this, and then you'd feign or whatever. Unfortunately, that still exists, and it happens a lot in traditional martial arts circles, and I can understand where there's the ire for that, and wanting to kind of call that out or expose it,
Yeah.
because there's
Uh,
people who
s-
don't know.
Speaking of which, my position on that is the lies and the cult like atmosphere that's created where your sensei is like God and you have to worship him, and then ranking, and you gotta like super like it's different from respect. It is to the point where it is like you're their slave kind of thing. And
Right.
that kind of cult atmosphere super needs to go. That is not good. And of course all the lies is bad, but when you're seeing some of this stuff with the my chi energy, this and that, what I'm seeing is like hypnosis,
Mm.
and that to me can be valuable for psychological warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And I've sparred some guys where I can tell you that I beat the guy because of psychological warfare, and it wasn't because
Nice.
of my skill. The guy looked at me, saw that I was Asian. He got immediately like, oh man, this guy's like Bruce Lee. I'm scared. So I played upon that, and I did the whole, and I did that, and it made him even more scared. And now I knew I
Right.
had him, and it wasn't because I was any better skill wise. you know. But it was the mind there. I played onto his weak. He had that weakness. Or in a BJJ tournament, they saw I was wearing wrestling shoes. They're like, he's gonna shoot. He's a wrestler. He's gonna shoot. So I started faking like I was gonna shoot. I started changing levels when I can't wrestle worth anything. I pulled guard in that match. I pulled guard, but I started using that, to my advantage. It's psychological warfare. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
From those guys,
But
I think.
the cult, man, no. Yeah.
Yeah, and what gets me too is that there's people who they want to learn some self defense, what have you, but they don't know any. They just don't know, and they see that and they think, oh man, this is the truth. I can do this. I can do that. The no touch knockout and stuff. But dude, and they're giving these guys money and whatnot, but they're getting scammed. And that's one thing that gets me. It's like, oh dude, like that's the part that I don't like. But
Right.
but you did bring up a good point about there is at least something that the hypnosis, the sort of mental game that you kind of noticed in that, and that you applied in your
Not at that level, but yeah, hypnosis does exist, right?
yeah.
Right. So hypnosis is real. And so to apply that in martial arts, I think is possible. I can't do it, but I think there are people that can, and they confuse that with this amazing chi power or whatever,
Yeah.
but I think that's what some of the stuff that we're seeing is. Yeah. No, that absolutely. Unfortunately, there are some abuse in the martial arts, like you were saying, and it makes us all look bad, which is
Yeah, it's unfortunate because in my experience, martial arts has been super positive.
I can
People,
tell.
yeah, like I love it. Like if people have asked me, like if they got kids, small kids, I always encourage them to put them in martial arts,
Mm,
whatever it is, karate, whatever. So many valuable life lessons to be learned and character building to be had.
yes.
Um, but unfortunately, it does get a little bit. Rarely, it gets tainted with when you get some of these weirdo teacher. Kind of
Yeah.
like I think it happened in, excuse me, in Taiwan. The judo teacher he put a kid in the hospital.
Oh no. Yeah.
He was being overly rough with him and kept throwing him and throwing him and throwing him. And they're like, "Hey, Sensei, that he's not feeling so well." But no, he's got to toughen up. Boom, 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 boom. And
Yeah.
I believe it was Taiwan or it might have been Hong Kong. I think this might have happened last year or two
Oh
years
no.
ago.
Yeah. Right. They went too hardcore and they killed the kid or something.
Yeah, he ended up in the
Oh,
hospital.
in the hospital. Yeah. At
Like
least
really bad.
man. Um.
So,
Yeah.
no, just that. Unfortunately, that happens. But I always tell people that's like the rare,
Right.
most 99% of the time it's going to be positive.
And you mentioned these challenge matches in China with the traditional styles going up against the MMA guys and stuff. And I've seen those matches on YouTube, and I feel like those are propaganda matches that they found because I believe that the Chinese investors, the corporations, they were ready to invest in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and they've bought it now, right? My understanding, it's owned by Chinese company, the
Mm,
UFC. So they knew they were gonna do that, and they want, think of the population there. Imagine if, all those people over there in China bought the pay per view. They got excited about their fighters and they're all into the UFC. How much money would they make? So they were trying to shift the gears of people thinking that they're thinking and go, you know what? This is antiquated. This stuff doesn't work. This is what works. So they're trying to push that, and people would watch MMA. Imagine people that have no training or anything, they would watch MMA and they would go, that's ugly. That's not real fighting. Why don't you go learn Tai Chi? Why don't you go learn something that's from our country that we've been doing for generations and it's
uh,
beautiful? Don't do this street fighting nasty stuff, right? And if you're on the ground, come on, other people will stomp you and stuff. That stuff is no good. Go do wushu. Go do, you can imagine, the dad saying that to his kid or something, right? So to
Right.
combat that, I felt like they had these propaganda matches, because the reason why I say that is in Japan they had the Ganryujima tournament, and in
Mm.
that tournament you can see they invite people from all these crazy different styles, and those dudes, like when they bring in a praying mantis guy or a tai chi guy or a Wing Chun guy, those guys look like fighters. You can tell, and they fight way better. Way better. I mean, yeah, they're ripped, so I mean they look like a professional athlete to begin with. Yeah, even the Tai Chi guy. I mean, he looks like he trains a lot, physically. Whereas to in the matches that you said, the Tai Chi guy doesn't look like a fighter. He looks like a coach or a teacher who's never really gotten in the ring. He does not
Yeah.
know how to fight. Period. Right?
Excuse me. Yeah, because a lot of them fellas were kind of older and, like you said, not physically super fit.
And
But I wonder
when this
too.
happened, you see their reaction like
Yeah,
it's the first time they've been hit.
but I want to see because I always thought that it was like because I'm thinking because what you're saying makes sense. But I'm thinking, well, what's in it for them guys? The Tai Chi, because I've seen some Wing Chun guys do it. Are they, excuse me, are they taking a big like money bag with them? Because
Paycheck?
now their reputation's on the line.
Right.
So they're willing to risk their students or their reputation
Yes.
for promoting something they don't do, like MMA or.
Yeah, these are guys that either, like you said, they are the money. They're doing it for the money. They know they're gonna lose, but they tell them like, look, if it gets bad, the ref will stop it. Don't worry about it. The ref will come in real quick, and we'll make sure that you're not gonna get beaten up too bad. You'll take one or two hits, but you won't be like, laid out in the hospital in a coma. So we'll make sure that won't happen to you, and maybe they accept it, or they really believe their own they yeah, they believe their own BS, and they think they can fight, and they found these guys. They're like, this guy's perfect. Look at this guy. He thinks he can really, and he's never done sparring, full contact. He's never done any of it, and he really, he's been a teacher for so long that he ended up believing it. Yeah,
Sorry. Here's something that I
yeah,
think would be interesting to ask you because you see this all the time. Like you see matches like MMA versus praying mantis or MMA versus Shotokan karate, whatever. Like some MMA versus the traditional style or boxing versus traditional style.
yeah.
And when the traditionalist does really good, he looks like using a kickboxing frame, right? Head movements, nice combos. And then people say, well, I thought this guy was supposed to be like a traditional Tai Chi guy or this or that. Why does he look like a boxer? Why does it? And do you think that sometimes that's a case of how we were saying they have a skeletal frame of combat sports and they sprinkle on like the Tai Chi or a traditional martial art? Or they were traditionalists and they started emulating boxing, kickboxing, and it comes out like that, or they're traditionalists, and when it comes down to the fight, it's gonna look more combat sportish, even though what we see with like Mantis or the animal styles or what have you doesn't look
Right.
like boxing or what have you. What's your opinion on that?
I think you nailed it. I think all of the above of what you
Mm-hmm.
said, and uh, over there before MMA, they already had it. They had something called Sanda. They had something called Sanshao, And when they tested it out themselves, when they were going like, okay, I've been doing, Wing Chun for 5 years. Now I'm going to test it out against this praying mantis guy. We're going to fight, right? Then the teacher, if he's knowledgeable, he says, okay, you got to do Sanda training. Okay, so when he starts, bringing out the bags and, he's like, A, you need stamina, so do cardio work. B, now you got to actually hit something, and not like hitting like the Wing Chun dummy, but like, let's work on the bag. Then he's now modifying his techniques to make it ready for full contact. And then it's just naturally starts to look more like MMA, I think. Yeah, and same with the praying mantis guy. And if the guy doesn't do it, that guy's in trouble. If he doesn't
Yeah.
do Sanda training and he just goes straight from the praying mantis school where he's been holding a horse stance for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and he thinks that's the way to go, he's gonna be in big trouble. Yeah, obviously,
Yeah.
because yeah,
Excuse me. And that's one of those interesting things where it wraps up to what we were talking about earlier of the combat sports people criticizing the traditionalists
hmm.
and maybe their training methods
Yeah,
of like you're spending 10 minutes doing horse stance where you could be 10 minutes shadow boxing or 5 minutes practicing footwork and then the other 5 minutes hitting the bag or and so I wonder because like I said earlier, I'm all for traditional martial arts too because there's some always to be gained,
yeah.
but I wonder too, what do you think is like a proper balance between like how deep in should you go into like a traditional?
Well, if you're talking about life, I think the traditional has tremendous value. Like the horse stance, I mean, that'll probably help you all the way up until old age, and everything. But then for actual fighting, how much is that gonna as far as like developing a strong lower body, okay, and a strong base, okay, you got it. Now it's time we got to start working you on something else like stamina
Right.
work and yeah, your combos, and we got to start working on that stuff. um but that's more, I think Sifu Paul Vunak, he said something like, there's training that you do for life study,
Hmm.
and then there's training that you do, like more for direct combat application type stuff, and you can't confuse the two. And
Right.
traditional has a lot of stuff that is for lifelong study.
Yeah, I agree with that. I
Hmm.
agree with that.
Yeah. So, yeah, because at the end of the day, there are dudes out there that they can fight and they've never done martial arts,
Yeah,
right?
they're just raw, aggressive.
Their environment that they were brought up in or whatever, they can fight, and the way they're built and psychology and everything, they're always in combat mode, and the mean streets of whatever that they grew up in and out of prison, and so these dudes are ready to fight. um Now, as you and I know, with martial arts, we're trying to make our lives better, more peaceful, and that has nothing to do with fighting.
Yeah. That is true. Like I feel like that's one key thing that's missing from a lot of like traditional styles is the just raw aggression.
Mm.
And sometimes, like you said, man, sometimes that's just all it takes to win a fight.
Danny Dos Santos said that, and I was surprised to hear this because I know Bruce Lee thought very highly of Chuck Norris, but he said that Chuck Norris was not a fighter. Apparently, according to from Professor Danny Dos Santos, that's what Bruce Lee had said about Chuck Norris. That and I Chuck Norris obviously was a very decorated North American, karate champion and super phenomenal at what he did. So I think what he meant was compared to other guys like maybe like Joe Louis and Bill Wallace maybe, or some of those other guys, he felt that Chuck Norris was more of a gentleman, you know,
Right.
and I mean I'm sure Chuck Norris could handle himself very well,
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the few movie stars I felt like is like, is super legit.
Oh yeah, totally, totally. Well, him and I think another guy. Well, he wasn't a movie star, but he was in I think a stuntman, Judo Gene LaBelle.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So he was a
exactly.
beast back in his day.
Right. That's what they say. That's what they say about both of those guys. And then personally, I like Don the Dragon Wilson and Olivier Grunner. Do you know those guys?
Don the Dragon Wilson, was he in Enter the Dragon?
No, no, no. He made a bunch of Roger Corman movies. So there were lower budget movies in the '90s, and I used to watch them
Oh.
all.
No, but we all know that the main guy who could handle all of them was Michael Dudikoff.
Yeah, American Ninja. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But anyway, dude, we've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes, so I think this is a good spot. No,
Oh yeah, totally, totally, man.
always a pleasure, bro.
Likewise, likewise. Always a pleasure. And dude, we're gonna train again, man. We're gonna train again and put a lot of stuff, exchange notes, and try out a lot of things, man. I think people will get a kick out of it.
Awesome, awesome. Back to the lab.
Yeah, oh yeah, indubitably.
All right, all right. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Vampire, over and out. Peace.
Thank you, Mr. Vampire.
All right.